Over to you, mate. Change my mind.
So I'm vegetarian.
Okay.
But I don't support animal abuse.
Being vegan is a kind of privilege. In England, most people can afford that privilege. But
I went to the fish and chip shop. I was like, oh, do they swim? Like, do they live? And they said, yeah. I was like, nah, I don't want to eat that.
Do you think that convenience would justify the enslavement, mutilation, rape, torture and murder of the animals?
no.
Okay.
Like, vegan products taste different, but...
Would you use it as a justifier? So if I said that all vegan food is 20% less tasty, would you say that that justifies taking babies away from mums and stabbing them to death?
Not
Yeah.
So I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I just want to see where your ethics lay.
I suppose it's a bit of like ignorance is bliss, because like
Yeah.
when you ask these questions, I was pretty close with the answers. So I suppose deep
Exactly.
down, I know.
Yeah.
But I kind of don't want to address it to like,
That's
or
very
admit
honest.
it to like justify my diet.
Do you know what has to happen to, for example, get dairy milk from a cow?
Doesn't its stomach have to be cut or something?
If you were the victim, would you accept somebody saying, I'm just not going to look like...
No.
So do you
Yeah.
think we should be taking that same position for the animals, or do you think we have an obligation to look, educate and then action? What's your name?
Felix.
Felix. Yeah, mate. You have the mic, Felix. So, I'm sorry?
Lauren?
Lauren, my name's Steve.
Steve?
Steve. So, Lauren, you've walked past, you've got a sign here that says if you're not vegan, you support animal abuse.
Yeah.
So it's just changed my mind. So what's your opinions? What's your thoughts? Felix, you've seen the sign?
Yes.
It says if you're not vegan, you support animal abuse. Change my mind. Over to you, mate. Change my mind.
So I'm vegetarian.
Okay.
But I don't support animal abuse.
I think to an extent, being vegan is a kind of privilege. In England, most people can afford that privilege. But
Okay.
Or at least I wouldn't believe that I support animal abuse.
Okay. Can I ask you first of all what made you vegetarian?
So my parents ate fish.
Okay.
And then when I was in Scouts, Beavers, which comes before Scouts.
Right.
obviously around the world, you know, I don't know, people that have goats and they need the goat milk.
I went to the fish and chip shop. I was like, oh, do they swim? Like, do they live? And they said, yeah. I was like, nah, I don't want to eat that.
To like survive.
So let's look at this from your perspective.
From my perspective.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So would it be safe to assume that you're vegetarian for animal ethics, animal rights?
Yeah, for animal ethics.
Okay, so the reason why vegetarianism will still be contributing towards animal abuse.
It's probably just for convenience. So I feel like I don't necessarily support animal abuse, but I suppose...
Do you know what has to happen to, for example, get dairy milk from a cow?
Doesn't its stomach have to be cut or something?
So
I suppose my financial choices somewhat condone it. But
yeah. So that's exactly what we mean by when you say you support animal abuse.
Yeah.
Because you understand, like, say for example, the dairy industry, they're supply and demand industries. So when you buy like a litre of cow's milk off the shelf, they will replace it with another one. So, do you know why cows produce milk?
For their calf.
For their calf, right?
Yeah.
So would you like to? So to get they have to be pregnant first.
Yeah.
Do you know how long they carry their baby for? And to have that system in place, animals are raped, mutated, exploited, and murdered. Do you know what has to happen to get milk? Do you know the process?
do they have to impregnate a cow and then slaughter the calf so they're like
so they forcibly impregnate the cow. Do you know how long the cow carries her baby for? So 9 months.
Like 8 months?
9 months. So when she has her baby and the baby is born, if they're male or female, what do you think happens to the baby? Do you know what happens to them?
So if it's a boy, it goes, and if it's a girl, it stays.
If they're female, they're probably capped so they can produce more milk, and they're probably killed if they're male.
So when you say the boy goes, what do you mean? Gets killed,
yeah.
Right? So they kill the males, and the females, they're also taken away and they're put into solitary confinement hutches because they can't drink the milk. Because that milk now...
Yeah, it's not really right, is it?
Okay,
it's not really fair.
And the females will be put into isolation hutches, and then they join the back of the dairy chain when they're sexually mature enough to carry their own babies. What do you reckon the average slaughter age of a dairy cow is? So this is why, and by the way, we've just started a conversation, and at no point am I coming from a point of judgment, like we're just having a nice conversation, because I was where you was at one point. So when we look at vegetarianism, a lot of vegetarians go vegetarian for animal rights, but they don't realise that to get products like cow's milk, these horrible systems have to be in place.
7?
Close, 5.
5.
Why do you think they slaughter them?
Because they're not as fertile, maybe, so they can't continuously
They don't produce as much milk.
Yeah.
Do you know how old a cow should live till?
20, maybe?
Like 27.
Oh, wow.
Male calves are killed, the females are separated from their mums. The average slaughter age, guess what the average slaughter age of a dairy cow is?
Probably a few months.
5.
Yeah.
5. So she'll have 4 pregnancies, maybe 5 pregnancies, and then her milk production slows down, and then they kill her because she becomes non-profitable.
Do you believe that animals are sentient?
100%. Do you believe animals are sentient?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, about 27 years. Do you think that what happens to her is justifiable for her milk?
No. I don't like milk, though. I will say it. I don't like milk, so I don't drink milk. I do like cheese, yeah.
So how do you feel? Like, what's your justification? If you're vegetarian for animal rights, but you still pay for like the dairy industry.
Yeah.
What's your justification in paying into that system that you're against?
Force of habit.
Okay. Same system, same product, same process.
Oh no.
What is it? I mean, do you feel that animals should at least have the right to their own life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's. I'm used to having like, I don't know, a chocolate bar or something. I think that because the demand isn't so high for vegan products, that in a lot of cases they don't have exactly the same taste, and of course this comes from satisfying like a need for the same taste that you've always had, you know.
Yeah, I suppose it was probably more of a convenience thing because I've been veggie since I was little.
Yeah.
And that's when veggie stuff, vegan stuff definitely wasn't available, and veggie stuff was just like the pea, carrot kind of mash mix.
Yeah. Okay.
Like vegan products taste different, but
would you use it as a justifier? So if I said that all vegan food is 20% less tasty, would you say that that justifies taking babies away from mums and stabbing them to death?
No.
But I suppose nowadays there are lots of alternatives, but...
Of course. But even if we went back to then, right, and we look at this issue from the victim's perspective, do you think that convenience would justify the enslavement, mutilation, rape, torture and murder of the animals?
No.
Not really, not at all.
Yeah. So that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will say like taste, convenience and social pressure. They're like 3 of the major kickbacks.
Yeah.
Like if they go to a social event and not everyone's vegan, or like taste and things like that. Would you accept any of them justifications if you were the victim? That's what it comes down to, right? And I'm not coming from a place of judgment whatsoever. You seem like a really nice person. And I was in your seat once upon a time. I wasn't born vegan. But I had these things put to me. Brilliant activist Joey Carbstrong. I was watching exactly what he's inspired us to do this, and I saw the dairy industry, and it made me realise that my ethics and my actions was just completely misaligned.
If I was a victim, no, I'd be like, not a chance.
So do you think that it's like fair that we then impose that on these victims who can't perhaps voice that opinion?
No, I think it stems from a long history of animal abuse and use.
Yeah.
So I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I just want to see where your ethics lay.
I suppose it's a bit of like ignorance is bliss, because when you ask these questions, I was pretty close with the answers. So I suppose deep down I know.
Yeah.
But I kind of don't want to address it to like,
That's
or
very
admit
honest.
it to like justify my diet.
That's very.
Which I think we're only just coming to the realization that this isn't acceptable, and I think because it's not so required, because we have better alternatives now, I think it would be brilliant if people would make the shift.
Cool. What about yourself? From a personal level, what's stopping you from being vegan?
So
very honest. I really appreciate your honesty, because a lot of people will try and justify it with like really silly, like outrageous justifications. But at least you're being honest and just saying like, you know, I'm keeping my blinkers on. But again, when we always come back to it, we always have to come back to the victim, because it is a victim. If you were the victim, would you accept somebody saying, I'm just not going to look like...
No.
So do you think we should be taking that same position for the animals, or do you think we have an obligation to look, educate, and then action?
I'm not really drinking milk anymore.
Cheese, chocolate,
cheese,
yogurts.
I'm still having. Yogurt, I'm still having. But I think that change doesn't happen instantaneously. Change takes time. You can't just like, it's with any sort of change. You can't just go one day I'm this, the next day I'm that, because then like.
I did.
But I think you clearly have very strong willpower.
Well,
to look and like educate.
Yeah. Anything like so? You said you have cheese, but you don't have animal flesh.
No.
So what about eggs?
No, I don't like eggs either. No.
So what about fish?
No.
Okay, so literally.
So it's really literally cheese and chocolate, I suppose.
Cheese and chocolate.
Yeah.
Okay, so both of them products.
Which is pretty easy to substitute.
It's going to be super easy to substitute because, do you know why it'd be really easy to substitute? Because you've got to keep the victim in mind.
But a lot of people can go back to previous habits or previous ways of being, and I think that a great way to encourage people to choose maybe a more loving path is to allow them to make the changes slowly.
People think that veganism is really difficult, and I suppose in life things are difficult if you look at inwards and if you look from a personal perspective. But for me, when I look at a victim, I look at an innocent animal, I can't let them down. And it becomes so much easier for me to make a choice based on whether I'm going to abuse them animals or not. So when you do it for the animals and you keep the victim in mind, it's the easiest thing you'd ever do. And like you say, there's so many other vegan options out there now, it's even easier.
There are loads, now.
Yeah, you know, it's super easy. Like most places have got vegan options. So this is the other frustrating thing when you sit down and talk to people. Would you say the same thing if you were the victim? Would you want me to slowly stop oppressing you, or would you be saying, listen, stop? Because I think a lot of people use that to justify themselves changing the goalposts and I'm on a journey and I'm slowly going to transition. They never have the intention to transition whatsoever, and they just use it to make themselves feel better. It's literally for us. We choose milk from that shelf or that shelf, or cheese from that shelf or that shelf, or we choose chocolate from that shelf or that shelf. That's the change we make, right? But the butterfly effect of that on the animals is so impactful, it's so dramatic, it's so important. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah? And in the eyes of the victim, you wouldn't accept that as a justification. Like, listen, you lot are going to be stabbed to death, but I'm going to slowly stop stabbing people in the next 6 weeks. We wouldn't accept it from the victim's point of view. And that's what we always must look at. You said it's difficult to make instant change. I think maybe that's correct if you're looking inwards. If I'm going to make a change to my diet and eat whole foods plant-based, that may be more difficult because it's like for my benefit.
Yeah.
But if you look at it like from the victim's point of view, it's so easy to make an instant change. Because if you're against animal abuse and you're currently paying for it, even once a month, it's easy to think of the animal, think of the victim, and then change your actions. Is there anything that's stopping you from being vegan? After we've talked about keeping yourself accountable and looking at the victim.
Just convenience and ignorance, I suppose, but it's hard to argue, I suppose, when you state the facts.
Yeah. And that's why we must always keep the victims
and the distressing, the upsetting facts.
Of course, if you're against animal abuse, you certainly wouldn't want to be contributing towards it, but most people are. But now you know better, you can do better, right? Because that's the thing, you have the power to make that change and choose a different option. So you literally have, you have the key to the cages, you have the voice to their chains. You can literally change your actions and then you can speak up for these animals. This is why we do what we do, right? Because these animals can't fight for themselves.
No.
They're stuck in cages, they're stuck in barns, they're stuck in these hellhole factories just waiting to be stabbed to death for taste pleasure.
Yeah.
Do you think if everyone took personal accountability and made a change, that we'd get systemic change faster?
Yeah, of course.
Do you think that that's what we should do?
I think everybody should be accountable for themselves, and I think it's very important that people take their own choice as being what they would like to happen for the greater good.
Yeah.
So this is why veganism's great, and the world does need vegans, but the animals need activists. So they need people to stand up. Women's rights. The only reason why women have rights is because people stood up. If you look at slavery, if you look at gay rights, you look at anything, we've got to stand up for these innocent victims, and let's be a voice for them, right? So maybe this will inspire you to not only go vegan, but think about ways how
Try a
you can
different
help.
aisle, yeah.
Because try a different aisle, right?
Yeah.
And then not be part, just not being not part of the problem. Try and be part of the solution, because animals really need us. We betray them on so many levels. Animals will purely only trust us. We betray them in these factory farms and in these small holdings and in these abattoirs. So do you reckon that this maybe made you think a bit different now about choices that you're making and your individual impact you can have?
Yeah.
From the view of the victim, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah? So what if my choice was to slow down and reduce? If you were the victim, would you accept that? So say, for example, I'm racist 7 days a week. I'm only going to be racist 4. Would you accept that if I was racist towards you?
No.
Okay.
No.
So we
I
can't look at it like that.
I think systemic change takes time. I think I've really enjoyed speaking to you.
Me too.
It's like an interesting debate. Like
Yeah.
I like thinking about these things and lifestyle choices.
Of course.
I feel like it has.
Good.
Because it's pretty easy to switch, like, chicken for corn, say. And it's cheaper, actually.
there's
so I
loads of
feel like the next
alternatives.
time I go shopping, I'll have a look
Next time you go shopping,
at the dairy alternatives.
yes. For us, it's a choice, right?
Yeah.
For the animals, it's life and death.
Exactly.
That's why the message is an immediate message, because it's so serious. We have to be their voice. Take this.
appreciate you doing this.
I appreciate you talking to me. There's some resources on there. Have a good day, mate. See you later. Have a good day, mate. Yeah. Just next time you go shopping, remember the victims. And remember that veganism is just a diet, right? So, for example, you've got the aquarium prison here, like they exploit animals there, zoos, leather, wool, all these industries have got exploitation attached. And I'll give you one of these cards because there's a really cool website here, Vegan Links, and you can look into it a little bit further about all industries that exploit animals.